Hey everybody, my name is Sam. Welcome back to my channel. Sorry I've been a little bit MIA this week. Nobody probably noticed, but it's been a long week. We've had a lot going on. So I haven't really had time to film a video. But today I thought I would sit down and have a little chat with you guys about comics. Because I've brought up some comics that I like to read a couple times in videos, and at the very least one of them has seems to have sparked a lot of interest, and that was Ladykiller that I talked about. Oh, excuse me. And so I thought maybe I would talk about some other comics that I really like. I've broken them down sort of into categories, but that way if you maybe don't read comics but you would like to and you don't really know what to look for or whatever, maybe this could be a good starting place for some recommendations for you, because not all comics are the same, and I think a lot of people think that they kind of are. So I have a list of, I think, 8 here. This isn't like a top 5 or anything. These are just some comics that I really like, and I like them for different reasons, and I thought I would talk about them a little bit. So let's get into it, I suppose. All right, so the first category that I kind of have is your typical, like, there's superhero comics, but that have like a little bit of a different, I guess, spin or whatever on them. And so the first 2 that I want to talk about are kind of regular superhero comics, but so one is by Marvel and one is by DC. And so the Marvel one that I really love is Spider-Gwen, which is kind of what it sounds like. It is Spider-Man, but it takes place in like a parallel universe or timeline or whatever, where Gwen Stacy, who is a former girlfriend of Peter Parker, is the one who gets bitten by the radioactive spider and gets the superpowers. And so it's just kind of her adventures as the one with spidey senses. I really enjoy it. The character is like in college, and she's part of a band called the Mary Janes, and there's just a lot of really interesting aspects to it that aren't necessarily part of it if you're dealing with Peter Parker. So things like issues with like family sensitivity and stuff. I don't know how to explain it, but I really like it. I also really kind of just like taking a known character like Spider-Man and kind of changing it to be a little bit different. So if you are kind of interested in superheroes, but you're kind of just sick of the stuff that's out in like movies and everything, that could be an interesting one for you to read. Another one that I really like is Superman Red Sun, which is a DC comic, and it is an alternate history kind of, where it tells the story of what would have happened if Superman had landed in Soviet Russia instead of the middle of America. And it kind of just goes through like what might have happened as far as like Superman becoming Superman goes, and like it brings in a bunch of other DC characters as well, and I really liked it. I read this one when I wasn't really reading comics as much, and it still really grabbed me, and I really enjoyed it. So that's a good one. I really recommend it. And then the last superhero with a twist one that I'm going to recommend is not a known superhero at all, and that is Angel Catbird by Margaret Atwood. And so this is a superhero story about a scientist, like a genetic engineer, who gets his DNA accidentally mutated, and it merges with an owl and a cat. And he becomes this weird hybrid species who goes around fighting like a crime ring. And it's funny, it's like kind of kitschy, it doesn't take itself too seriously, and there's a lot of cat puns in it. Plus, I love Margaret Atwood. I love her poetry, I love her novels, and I just think this is really good. My husband actually bought this for me for, well, it was supposed to be for Christmas, but I guessed when he was buying me, so he just gave it to me when it showed up in the mail. But I have only read volume 1 of this. I also own volume 2, and I believe volume 3 is out as well, and I still have to get that one. but I really like it. It's cat puns and Margaret Atwood, and it's like makes fun of itself a little bit, and it's really great. I like it a lot. Okay. The next one I have isn't really a category necessarily, but it's one that I've talked about before, so I'm just going to go into it really briefly, and that is Ladykiller by Joelle Jones. This is volume 1. It is kind of a noir, like, dark comedy type thing, and so it's about a 60s housewife who is an assassin for hire, and it's about her trying to balance the life of a 60s housewife with the life of a woman who murders people for money. And she's trying to, like, keep her family from finding out and trying to do a good job, and, like, the organization she works for is out to get her, and there's all this, like, kind of shit going on. And it's really good. Volume 1 is pretty good, and then it doesn't get really, really good until volume 2. So if you do decide to read that one, stick it out. It gets better with time. Moving on. The next one I have is also kind of... No, it's not. The next one I have is science fiction-y kind of stuff. And so the first one I have to talk about for that is Why the Last Man by Brian K. Vaughan. It is a sci-fi dystopian kind of series, which is about like an event, some sort of event that wipes out all things with a Y chromosome on the planet. And except for this one man named Yorick and his pet monkey named Ampersand. And it is kind of the politics and how the world shifts when there are no men left except for this one, and how he kind of now is being counted on to like repopulate the planet, and like what the ramifications. It's like it gets into a lot of shit, but I really like it. Again, I haven't read the whole series, but it's because it's pretty long, but everything I've read from it I've liked. My husband is a really big fan of that one as well. And actually that was my kind of gateway into the world of Brian K. Vaughan, who is one of my favorite comic writers. I haven't read Saga, which I know he also did, but I do have the first couple volumes. I just haven't gone there yet because I know once I do, I'm gonna like be hooked, and I know it's kind of a long series, and I've got quite a few going right now, so I haven't done that one yet. But yeah, Why the Last Man is really good. The next sci-fi I have is my all-time favorite comic that I've read, and also just a great sci-fi story, and that is Descender by Jeff Lemire or Lemire, I'm not sure how to pronounce it, and it's illustrated by Dustin Nguyen. This is a sci-fi story about artificial intelligence and robots, and what would happen in the event that robots are sentient beings, and then technology turns on us, and then kind of the ramifications of that. In this case, it's like not all robots are bad, but a couple kind of ruined it for everyone, and then it turned into like humanity banning all of it. I don't know, it's really hard to explain, but basically robots have become outlaws, and this one little guy, his name is Tim, Tim 21, I think. Maybe, let me check. Yeah, Tim 21. He is like a companion robot. He was designed to keep a family company, and they raised him like their son. He thinks of them as his family, and his family all dies, and he was like shut down during this huge event, which was basically robots turning on society, and it wiped out his whole family, but he was shut down. And then he wakes up years later, and now robots are like persona non grata, and he is being hunted, partly because he is a robot and they're not supposed to be any left, and partly because his mechanical makeup is like shares a trait with the robots that turned on society, and they want to do like experiments on him. And it's like he's like essentially an 8 or 12-year-old, I can't remember exactly, boy, and he is dealing with like being an orphan all of a sudden and dealing with all of these huge societal changes as well. And it's really sad and character driven. And I love it so much. I probably talked too much about it, but seriously, read it. Give it a chance if you like science fiction, if you like emotional stories, if you like robots, if you like comics, if you are a human, read this. And then the next one is science fiction, but it also kind of bleeds into my next category, which is coming of age-ish stories. And so that one is Paper Girls, also by Brian K. Vaughan. I love these. It's like a time travel sci-fi story, but it starts off in the 1980s. It's these 4 12-year-old girls who deliver paper, and on the night before Halloween, they're out delivering newspapers and shit goes awry. They end up being sucked into various points in time, and they kind of have to keep saving each other and everyone else. And they end up in the middle of this like war between time travelers, and it's really crazy. But it's also got a lot of just like teenage drama, like coming of age stuff. Like one of the characters gets her first period, and one of the characters starts questioning her sexuality, and there's like a lot of stuff going on in here. And I really, really recommend it as a coming of age story, and also as a sci-fi story, and also because the colors and the art are really, really awesome. All right. And then the last one I have here is the Scott Pilgrim series by Brian Lee O'Malley. This is volume 1, Scott Pilgrim's Precious Little Life. These are really weird. I don't quite know how to describe them. They're sort of coming of age because he's like in his early 20s and trying to figure his life out, and he's like trying to figure out his love life. They're also kind of sci-fi because there's all this like weird shit going on with like people traveling through space and time, and I don't know. They're like really bizarre, but they're really entertaining. They're funny. They get a little bit dark at points, and it's a pretty honest portrayal of like somebody in their 20s trying to just like figure their shit out, but on a very extreme level. The movie with Michael Cera is a pretty good representation of what's going on in those, but the comics get quite a bit like darker. So if you've seen that movie, it's like a decent gauge of like what's what. But yeah, so those are my recommendations, I guess. I think I hit a couple different genres and a couple different types of like interests. If you have read any of these, let me know about it in the comments below. Or if you have any other recommendations for comics that you think I might like, or even honestly that you don't think I might like, I'm pretty open to anything. If I've convinced you to read any of these, let me know, because that would be pretty cool. Like and subscribe and shit. Have a great day. Bye.